The crown prince's one true love died, so he hastily recruited 10 stand-ins. He's been incredibly busy every day. Starting at dawn, he accompanies stand-in No. 1 to draw her eyebrows, stand-in No. 2 to dine, stand-in No. 3 to appreciate poetry. I'm number 10. By the time my turn comes, night has already fallen. The other stand-ins were all jealous of me. Because the crown prince came to sleep with me. Main text, I've reincarnated again and again and again. Back to the crown prince's bed once more. Sleep. These were the 2 words Fu Yuan said to me most often. This lifetime was no exception. Sleep my ass, I just woke up, okay? But I obediently closed my eyes. Because Fu Yuan always said, you resemble her most when you're asleep. So whenever he came, I had to sleep. Even if I was wide awake, I had to pretend to be drowsy. Over time. Whether I resembled Su Qingyao or not was beside the point. But I certainly resembled a pig eating when full, sleeping when fed, utterly emotionless. At first, I'd often jolt awake in the middle of my sleep, startled by Fu Yuan. He'd always be right beside my pillow, staring straight at me with those eyes. I thought he was sick. But now it's fine. Not because he's cured. Because I've gotten used to it. Considering that in every life I've lived, my fate has been in Fu Yuan's hands from the very beginning, I occasionally say things to amuse him. Your Highness, that tear mole is utterly captivating. It resembles the soul-stealing male demon from those storybooks. What demon? I am the crown prince. Do not speak nonsense. Though Fu Yuan scolds me, his tone softens. I know he enjoys hearing my praise. But what I truly think is, that tear mole, beautiful though it may be, always seemed to lack a certain charm on Fu Yuan's face. I had once seen a more breathtakingly beautiful youth. He too bore a tear mole. That man favored crimson robes, flamboyant as fire. Riding a horse by a slanting bridge, red sleeves beckoning from the tower. When he arched his brows and smiled, he was truly a demonic beauty. I counted the days. In this lifetime, I would soon see him again. Early April. Wars raged frequently in the southern frontier. The emperor assigned Fu Yuan numerous governmental duties. He spent his days deliberating with ministers, leaving him no time to meddle with us stand-ins. I summoned the other 9 stand-in sisters and began a new round of brainwashing. Why should women torment other women? We're all substitutes adrift in this world, why bother pretending we've met? They must have agreed this hellish existence was utterly tedious. So they quickly fell under my spell, trading gossip about the crown prince's secrets. Substitute No. 1 said, he comes every day to draw my eyebrows. His technique is beyond belief. When he's done, anyone who doesn't know better would think I'm Zhang Fei. Substitute number 2 said, drawing your eyebrows? That's nothing. Just because his white moonlight loves lotus root, he makes me eat it at every meal. Now I see him as nothing but a lotus root. Substitute number 3 said, he makes me recite poetry to him every day. Now, whenever I see poetry, my whole body prickles like I've got a rash. I even named this condition poetry rash. Sisters, do you think my poetry rash is curable? When it was my turn, I rolled up my sleeves, flashed the guaishan powder, and instantly blinded them. He comes to sleep with me every night, but he sleeps all alone. Dead silence fell around us. Then, you're that miserable? Ha 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 ha. Good thing he never comes to sleep with me. My condolences, Shin's sister. I can't hold it in. Quack 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 quack. The moment Substitute No. 7 let out that goose honk, we all lost it. The room erupted in laughter. I laughed along too. Fu Yuan never touched me. It wasn't so much that he slept with me as he came to watch me sleep. A man with even half a brain wouldn't do such a thing. Later, we happily gave each other nicknames. Substitute No. 1 replaced Princess Qingyao's eyebrows, so she became Li Mimi. The second stand-in was forced to eat lotus root daily, so she became Wang Xiao. The third stand-in was once a literary genius, but now she wanted nothing to do with scholarship, she just wanted to be illiterate. She was dubbed Li Shizhen. And so on. When it came to me, they called me Xin Shui Shui. After naming each other, the girls doubled over with laughter. Her bearing faded, yet her voice rang like silver bells. Her limbs trembled, yet 100 blossoms burst forth. Alas, the crown prince never had the fortune to witness such sights or hear such sounds. Mid-April. In the eastern palace, the tassel trees bloomed profusely. The crown prince remained ever busy. We reveled in carefree bliss. That day, the third stand-in, Li Shizhen, and I admired the flowers in the small pavilion. Though Li Shizhen aspired to be uneducated, she couldn't shake her innate scholar's habits. Gazing at the tree laden with wisteria blossoms, she sighed with literary flair, 1,000-year wisteria, April snow. These blossoms make the finest tea. Hey, sleepyhead, have you ever tried wisteria flower tea? Of course I had. You brewed it for me in every lifetime, I'm sick of it. But, never had it? Is it good? I asked with feigned curiosity. Her interest piqued, she smiled coyly and nodded, her eyes soft and gentle, delicious. If you've never tried it, I'll pick some later. We'll brew it tomorrow and let the sisters sample this novelty. After speaking, she noticed I hadn't responded and turned to look for me. But then she saw that, unbeknownst to her, I had already stepped over the balcony railing and was walking along the edge. Li Shizhen's face instantly paled, her voice trembling. Hey! Xin Shui, what are you doing? I smiled at her, picking flowers. Didn't you want to make tea? She looked like she might die of anger, stamping her foot in urgency. Are you out of your mind? Is this how you pick flowers? It's so high up. If you fall, you'll be dead for sure. Come back here. Just then, a bird swept past the flower tips. I gave Li Shizhen a knowing wink. Dead for sure if I fall? Let me test it. With that, I closed my eyes with a smile, under her stunned gaze. Spreading my arms wide, I fell backward. Li Shizhen thought I was trying to kill myself. Terrified out of her wits, she screamed, Xin Shui. The wind, carrying the scent of flowers, whistled past my ears. In my mind, I counted silently, 3, 2, 1. The curve of my lips deepened. He was coming. The passing youth arrived, right on schedule. He leapt up, catching me in his arms. I landed safely in Crown Prince Xiaxian's embrace. I opened my eyes. He gazed down at me, his flame-red robes billowing in the wind. He asked, What? Have you lost your mind, young lady? I raised my arms, wrapping them around his neck. Gazing at his picture-perfect brows and eyes, and that tiny tear mole, who's lost their mind. Why would I want him? I miss you. Then, I witnessed Xiaxian's expression shift from aloof indifference to utter bewilderment. His gaze, too, shifted from one of concern for a troubled young woman to one of concern for a mentally challenged child. Who did you say you miss? Xiaxian countered. He had already carried me to the ground. But I still clung to his neck, refusing to let go. Didn't catch that? Let me repeat. I said, I miss Xia Xiaolingjun, that is, Xia Shizi, that is, Xiaxian, that is, you, I miss you. He'd likely never encountered someone as blunt and unfiltered as me. He froze, stunned by the directness. Soon, a soft chuckle escaped his thin lips. Ha, young lady, your methods are quite peculiar. Daring to jump from such a height, how long have you been planning this? I'm betrothed. Are you unaware, young lady? Or are you teasing me knowingly? If you continue clinging to me like this, I might just cry foul. People say, Xia Xiaoling always seems to be smiling, but when he turns sharp-tongued, it's downright vicious. Whenever a girl gathers her courage to show affection, he always sends her away laughing, only to return crying. With just a few words, he crushes her heart into dust. Yet I just love to tease him. And I find all sorts of ways to tease him. In my past life, I cried nestled in his embrace. This lifetime, I cling to him laughing. My scheme against you hasn't been long, just 100 or 80 years. If your betrothal can be broken, it can be broken. If not, I can still snatch you away. Third rule, since Prince Xia wants to cry foul, wouldn't it be a waste if I didn't actually commit a foul act? Having said that, before he could react, I pressed my lips to his with a smile. Xiaxian's lips were warm and soft, perfect for kissing. But he wasn't one to be trifled with. Arrogant as ever, he snapped to attention at my slightest touch, glaring at me with fierce eyes. So I settled for the next best thing. Under his stunned gaze, I began reciting a love poem. At dawn I gaze upon the sky, at dusk I watch the clouds. Ah. That. The rest goes. After being kissed against his will, Xiaxian's face had flushed with anger. But when I stumbled over the poem, his expression shifted from anger back to pitying a simpleton. I shamelessly pressed him. Do you remember? How did that line go? Something like, I think of you when I see the sky, I think of you when I see the clouds, I think of you when I walk, I think of you when I sit, I even think of you when I get hemorrhoids. Xia Xiaolingjun, with his extraordinary talent, couldn't stand such crude imagery from me. He immediately recited it to me. At dawn I gaze at the sky, at dusk I watch the clouds, walking, I think of you, sitting, I think of you. His voice rose and fell, magnetic and captivating. I curved my lips into a triumphant smile. All right, all right. I get it, you miss me terribly. No need to recite anymore. Xia Xian. His expression was a masterpiece. Meanwhile, a wail of sorrowful lamentation echoed from the other end. Shin Shui Shui. How are you holding up? Shin Shui Shui. Are you still alive? Shin Shui Shui. You died so tragically. Wah. I could tell Li Shishan's footsteps were frantic as she scrambled down the cloud ladder. The cloud ladder's position was quite distant. Lush tassel-flowered trees blocked the view in between. So, Li Shishan couldn't see me right away. She probably thought I was dead. Hence, she cried first as a sign of respect. I was numb to it by now. After all, in every lifetime, at this moment, she would mourn me. You just get used to it. Xiaxian also heard Li Shishan's wailing. He lowered his gaze to me, a faint smile playing on his lips. You're Shin Shui Shui? I nodded, smiling as I asked, why? A hint of teasing flashed in Xiaxian's eyes. Miss Shui Shui has such a unique name. Could it be you're particularly fond of sleeping? I lifted my gaze to meet his, my smile blooming like a flower. I am indeed. Would young Master Xia care to try it with me? Rarely, he faltered, as if forgetting his anger. Immediately after, I saw an unnatural flush creeping across his flawless, icy white face. Li Shishan rushed over, her eyes red and puffy like a rabbit's. Seeing I was unharmed, she exhaled in relief. Just as she was about to scold me, she belatedly noticed I was locked in an embrace with Xiaxian. Her beautiful almond-shaped eyes widened in shock. Shin Shui, you're the crown prince's concubine. Are you out of your mind? She deliberately lowered her voice as she spoke, glancing around nervously. As if terrified someone might see us. I still value my life. I just couldn't bear to look away. After all, the usually sharp-tongued and cruel young master of the Xia family had actually blushed because of me. Even the tiny tear mole beneath his eye seemed to glow with an otherworldly charm. It was a sight rarer than the legendary thousand-year fringe, April snow. Yet Xiaxian's face darkened inch by inch. When he spoke again, his tone was grim. You're the crown prince's concubine? His words came out hoarse, laced with a chill of scorn. His chest heaved violently. Clearly, he was furious. I grasped his hand and explained softly, I do hold that position, but only reluctantly. I'm confined here temporarily. Rest assured, the crown prince and I have never. He wore an expression that was neither a smile nor anger, as if it didn't matter. Miss Shin, let go. I must leave. So cold, yet claims indifference? He must be seething inside. I couldn't let such a misunderstanding stand, immediately blocking his path. Xia Yan, you may go, but you won't leave in anger. I haven't toyed with you. I've been counting the days, waiting for your passage. You have no idea how long I've waited for you. Xiaxian fell silent. The look he gave me now was like staring at a hot potato. After a long moment, the ice on his face finally began to melt. He seemed resigned, yet surprisingly, he didn't mock me. Instead, his tone softened slightly, almost like he was trying to comfort me. Miss Shin, I truly am betrothed. But that girl has been missing for years. I've searched everywhere for her, yet I can't find her. I promised I would only marry her. Please, Miss Shin, Don't waste your heart on me anymore. I said nothing, a faint smile playing on my lips, though my heart ached so much I wanted to cry. Foolish Xie Xian, I'm standing right in front of you. But I knew the time was almost up. Saying too much now wouldn't make him believe me. So I focused on the essential task. I pulled out a small book and pressed it into his hands. This is for you. I wrote it myself. Xie Xian glanced at the cover and froze. He seemed to struggle to make out the words before finally reading aloud, On Surviving in This Pain-in-the-Ass World, Draft 18? He'd read the very title I'd personally penned for this book. I nodded vigorously, my expression solemn as I warned him, this concerns your life. You must read it carefully, thoroughly, every single word. He fell silent for a moment before finally uttering, Miss Shen's calligraphy. Did you learn it from a dog? Deeply aggrieved, I muttered under my breath, actually, I learned it from you. Xia Yan. Not long after. News reached the crown prince that I had stumbled and fallen from the pavilion, only to be saved by young Master Xia. Li Shizhen and I had coordinated our story. To the outside world, we claimed I simply craved the tassel flower tea she brewed. To pick the flowers, I was clumsy and had an accident. The crown prince didn't think much of it. After all, I spent my days eating, sleeping, eating. No matter how you looked at it, I didn't seem like someone who would seek death. But I remained the stand-in in the entire Eastern Palace who bore the strongest resemblance to Su Qingyao. He couldn't help but show some concern. If you wished for any tea, you need only ask me. Why risk yourself? He played his part, and I played mine. Your Highness has been so occupied lately, I dared not trouble you. Fu Yuan's lips curved slightly. Is it that I spend too little time with you? I couldn't be bothered to respond, so I simply feigned drowsiness. That was the appearance he claimed resembled Su Qingyao most closely. Sure enough, upon seeing me like this, his originally gloomy expression gradually brightened. In a tone that seemed almost indulgent, he said, The Eastern Palace doesn't have many tassel flowers. If you wish to drink them, I'll send people to purchase them from outside the palace. Thus, to appease me, Fu Yuan ordered every last tassel flower in the palace plucked clean. The next day, he had 4 entire crates hauled in from outside the palace. Li Shizhen gleefully brewed tea for the other stand-in sisters every single day. Li Mimi sighed, this must be a lethal dose, right? Wang Xiao was even more disillusioned. I used to think eating lotus root every meal was the most nauseating thing, but now we have to endure tea every meal too. But complaints aside. When Li Shizhen came bearing tea next time, they still sipped it with beaming smiles. After all, having tea to drink meant having something to complain about. It was better than staring at the high walls of the Eastern Palace, counting bricks like the living dead. Besides, back then, the girls could still admire the flowers. Now, every blossom in the palace has been plucked. Now we can only admire the trees, bare, leafless trees. The crown prince has started coming to sleep with me every night again. Sometimes, overcome with emotion, he leans in to kiss me. At such moments, I would offer him a smile. A slightly mocking one. It was my deliberate way of reminding him. Seeing my smile, he would snap out of it, his gaze turning dark and icy as he fixed me with a glare. Shenrongrong, don't you dare smile. When you smile, you don't look like Qingyao anymore. Don't you know that? Shenrongrong, don't push your luck. Don't covet a position that isn't yours. Was I the one overstepping? Clearly, it was him. But of course, I wouldn't expose him. I adopted an attitude of willingly remaining a substitute, concealing my achievements and fame. Your Highness wrongs me again. Princess Qingyao's beauty is peerless. To resemble her even 7-fold is already my greatest fortune. How could I dare covet anything more? With that, Fu Yuan was satisfied. Meanwhile, I stared at the tear mole beneath his eye, one bearing a faint resemblance to Xie Xian's, and thought, to bear such a mole is surely his own blessing. The walls of the Eastern Palace were too high. In my first few rebirths, I was consumed by the urge to escape. To find my beloved. But doing so always hastened the death I dreaded most. So later, I learned one word, survival. Finally. 3 months later, news exploded through the capital. Princess Qingyao wasn't dead. She had returned. Months prior, Su Qingyao had entered the mountains to offer incense but was abducted by bandits. Even when the crown prince intervened, no trace of her could be found. Everyone assumed she had perished in the bandits' lair, her remains lost forever. Yet now, she returned to the capital with the leaders of those very bandits, seeking amnesty. The bandit problem that had plagued the court for years was resolved by a mere 16-year-old girl. From the imperial court to the common streets, whispers echoed, "Why would those fearsome bandit chiefs obey her? Why does Princess Qingyao, seemingly so delicate, possess such courage and cunning?" A mystery that baffled the world. But I, reborn time and again, have unraveled it, because Su Qingyao possesses an extraordinary treasure. Called the beloved system. If she so desires, she can make everyone in this world dote on her and cherish her. She was not of royal blood. General Su had perished heroically on the battlefield years ago, and Lady Su had followed him in death. The Su family was left with only one orphan daughter. The emperor cherished her, so he granted her the exceptional title of princess and raised her in the palace, treating her as his own daughter. The crown prince cherished her, so deeply that he longed to marry this sister without blood ties as his crown princess. The consorts of the harem cherished her, showering her with sumptuous robes and delicacies, bestowing endless gifts for her to squander freely. The other princes adored her too, seeing her as the most endearing little sister in the palace. Even common folk in the streets spoke of her with reverence and affection. All because she was General Su's daughter. She was snow among the clouds, the moon in the heavens. But only I knew she was unworthy. She was a fraud. I was the real Su Qingyao. The irony was, she had appeared out of nowhere, taken over my body, and usurped my identity. And now, I had become her stand-in once more. When I was 13, father died in battle, and mother fell gravely ill. Her expression as she lay dying, gazing at me, was tender and apologetic. "Yao Yao, my dear, mother is going to join your father. From now on, if anyone bullies you, go find Xia Xian. He is your future husband. He will protect you." Later, I wailed before my mother's funeral altar. I refused to let them bury her coffin, even trying to pry it open. Mother loved beauty and life. I couldn't bear to bury her in the earth. Dark and stifling beneath the soil, with insects gnawing at her, how could mother endure it? At first, people urged me to grieve properly, pitying my plight. But when my outbursts grew too violent, I heard someone say, "If you keep this up, you'll delay the burial." Alas, how could the general's daughter be so unreasonable? My sobs abruptly halted, and I froze in place. Just as my sorrow reached its peak, a tall youth stepped before me. He was strikingly handsome, his brow carrying a hint of carefree arrogance and innate haughtiness. Lifting his clear, beautiful eyes to meet theirs, his voice was crisp and sharp, tinged with scorn. "The spirits of the general and his lady watch over us. You come to pay your respects, yet behind closed doors you dare to gossip about the general's orphan daughter. May I ask, gentlemen, is this behavior truly what you call well-behaved?" The entire hall fell silent. Xia Xian was only 14 at the time. He had shed his usual crimson robes for mourning white. Holding my hand, he stood before the high-ranking officials, addressing them as sir with every sentence, his defiant arrogance silencing them completely. In the end, the officials had no choice but to bow before me, apologizing in shame. Xia Yan bent down, cupped my face, and sighed softly, "You crybaby." The usually unruly youth actually raised his hand to wipe away my tears. "Your mother wished to be buried alongside your father. They may become blossoms, grow into plants, or turn into the breeze. If one day a breeze drifts past your window, carrying floral scents, it will be them returning to visit you." His fingers felt slightly cool, like early winter snow. His voice wasn't particularly warm either. Yet I could sense a fleeting, awkward tenderness in his eyes and brows as he spoke. Finally, I nodded and stopped my tantrum. Only then could people bury my mother. I watched as the earth slowly covered her coffin. From that moment, I knew. Xia Xian was all I had left. After that, I was utterly exhausted. But the funeral rites dragged on. The adults were too busy to tend to me, and I didn't want to bother them. Besides Xia Yan, I didn't want anyone else. Xia Yan carried me all the way back to the manor. "Xia Yan, my mother told me before she passed that men and women shouldn't touch each other. You can't kiss anyone else, but you can kiss me." His voice trailed off as he spoke the latter part. He paused, then abruptly shifted his tone, emphasizing almost threateningly, "From now on, you can only kiss me." My heart skipped a beat. "Xian, you haven't even become my husband yet, and you're already so domineering?" His tone instantly grew tense. "Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Don't you want to marry this young master anymore?" "Of course I do." I wanted to respond to him right then. But I was slumped against his back, and before I knew it, I'd fallen asleep. When I woke up, everything had changed. I was no longer myself. My soul awoke in another body. I had become Shenrongrong. The real Shenrongrong was dead. She died in the brothel, the day before she was to serve a customer. Truthfully, had she waited just a little longer, she could have preserved her virtue and been bought as a chingy. If she'd endured a few more years, she might even have been presented to the crown prince. Alas, it was I who ended up entering the Eastern Palace instead. I've been locked in a struggle with this imposter, the Qingyao princess, for several lifetimes now. It seems she can sense my existence through the treasures of the beloved system. Moreover, she regards me as her greatest threat. In the first 2 lifetimes, I never figured out her tactics and always met a swift end. From the 3rd life onward, I grew increasingly adept at survival. The advantage of repeatedly reincarnating and clinging to life is this: I came to understand that Princess Qingyao better and better. I discovered she fancies Xiayan. She intends to marry my beloved while impersonating me. I can't help but marvel at such brazen audacity. Of course, I wouldn't let her succeed. I began calculating silently. Each rebirth rewound my time back to my days as the stand-in in the Eastern Palace. Xiayan and the Crown Prince weren't particularly close. The only opportunity was when he once came to the Eastern Palace to seek the Crown Prince's counsel regarding the Southern Border War. So, in every life, I would fall from the Eastern Palace's tower at the most opportune moment, landing in Xiayan's arms. I kissed him, embraced him, and tried my hardest to seduce him. After all, he had said, I must not have intimate contact with other men. But with him alone, I could kiss him, couldn't I? I'd survived several lifetimes, numb to death itself. Sometimes I wondered, when would this cycle end? Perhaps I should die completely, never to be reborn again. Yet in every life, no matter how bizarre my death, I always see Xiayan's figure before my final breath. His eyes are always reddened as he rushes toward me, his thin lips parting as if struggling to say something. But I can never hear clearly. What is he saying? Could he have recognized me? I desperately wanted to hear his words. So, I changed my mind again, one more try. In the next life, even if I only live half a moment longer, I will hear his voice clearly. But this world seemed to be mocking me. In my next life, I experienced the exact same situation. Xiayan's figure only appeared when I was on the brink of death. I still couldn't hear his words. Time and time again. How infuriating is that? So I deliberately mastered the complete guide to lip reading. But when I finally learned to read lips and face death again, Xiayan stopped speaking. He began communicating with me through eye contact. The youth's eyes were bloodshot, brimming with sorrow, as if 1,000 words were held back, on the verge of being spoken. Me. Fine, I get it. You just want to keep me hooked, making me reincarnate over and over? I'll come back. And so, I slept and then fought my way back. But this time, I won't just survive. I'm going on the offensive. Because I refuse to die again, I'm determined to live and marry Xiaxian. After the princess returned, the crown prince was overjoyed for days, but soon his brows furrowed again. She hadn't visited him in the Eastern Palace. His mind was restless. I wasn't surprised. After all, that princess was the moonlight in his heart. Yet in her eyes, he was merely a plump fish in a pond. I employed a few minor tricks, deliberately letting the East Palace servants' idle chatter reach the Crown Prince's ears. Thus, the Crown Prince learned some news. Princess Qingyao has a young man she admires. That person is the heir of the home mansion, Xiaxian. Princess Qingyao personally sent a letter to young Master Xia, inviting him to the palace on the 7th day of the 7th month. They plan to savor wine and admire the moon together on the Yueyao Terrace. Princess Qingyao is already 16. Shouldn't she be granted a marriage decree by now? I understood Fu Yuan. These words were neither too deep nor too shallow, stopping precisely at the right point. Yet each one landed precisely, piercing Fu Yuan's heart like a dagger. That night, when Fu Yuan came to my chambers, his face was so dark it seemed to freeze the air. He was furious, and more interestingly, his anger was directed at Princess Qingyao. I leaned lazily against the headboard, rubbing sleep from my eyes as I asked him, "Your Highness, may I sleep now?" I knew full well that mimicking that moonlight figure at a time like this would only fan the flames of his rage. But that was precisely what I was waiting for. Sure enough, crash! Fu Yuan casually hurled a cup to the floor, his gaze fixed on me with an obsessive, almost sickening intensity. "You are not to sleep." I glanced at the shards scattered on the ground, feigning ignorance and offering feigned concern. "Your Highness, is something troubling you?" Anger harms the body. Why not speak it out? Fu Yuan hesitated, words on the tip of his tongue. It was likely too painful to voice. After all, as the noble crown prince, being unable to have the girl he loved was deeply humiliating. I added fuel to the fire. "It's getting late. If you don't wish to speak, Your Highness, then lie down and sleep." With that, I prepared to lie down again. Fu Yuan suddenly grabbed me up, fixed his gaze on my face, and asked hoarsely, "Why? I've been so good to you, yet you chose Xie Xian?" He couldn't hold back any longer. I said nothing, only watched him silently. I needed to let him lose his mind for a while. Only when he truly felt the agony of unattainable longing, the bone-splitting, gut-wrenching pain, would he risk everything to quench his thirst with poisoned wine. A sickly red gradually spread across Fu Yuan's eyes. He questioned me relentlessly, his grip tightening with each word. At the most critical moment, I deliberately spoke up to remind him, "Your Highness, I am Shenrongrong. I am not your white moonlight." Fu Yuan's expression froze abruptly. He released me, his gaze unfocused. After a moment of silence, he began to speak. "They've arranged to meet on the 7th day of the 7th month, at the Moonyao Terrace to drink wine and admire the moon." Humph. That name, Moon-adorned Terrace, I personally bestowed it upon her. Yet she uses it to entertain another man. Soon, Father Emperor will likely grant her a marriage decree. Father favors her. When she was young, General Su even verbally betrothed her to Xie Xian. She'll marry Xie Xian as she desires. As Fu Yuan spoke, his gaze grew increasingly twisted and terrifying. Having lived through countless lifetimes with him, I instantly recognized the depth of his resentment. The moment was ripe. Slowly, I spoke, seemingly on impulse, yet the words had been brewing for ages. "Your Highness wishes to marry the princess as crown princess, correct?" "Actually, I've devised a solution for you." Fu Yuan snapped his head up to stare at me, his eyes filled with shock. I looked at his gaunt face and the tear mole beneath his eye. "Would your Highness mind making a small sacrifice? Donning a crimson robe to disguise yourself as a young master of the Xie family?" Fu Yuan asked incredulously, "What?" I finally voiced the words I'd held back for so long. "Truthfully, your Highness's features bear a striking resemblance to young Master Xie." In that moment, Fu Yuan froze. But then, his expression gradually turned cold. "Shenrongrong, you want me to stand in for Xie Xian before Qingyao?" I lifted the corner of my mouth slightly, replying calmly, "Well, would your Highness be willing?" In the past, Fu Yuan would have certainly refused. Proud and lofty, the crown prince of the Eastern Palace, how could he stoop to imitating another man? Especially when that man was his romantic rival. But times had changed. Fu Yuan had always been adept at weighing pros and cons. To win his moonlight, he threw caution to the wind. He donned crimson robes and even altered his hairpin to mimic Xie Xian's style. I even sought out an assistant, stand-in number 1, Li Mimi. This woman appeared to be merely passing her days idly in the Eastern Palace. In truth, however, she possessed makeup skills bordering on the supernatural. With Li Mimi's extraordinary skill enhancing the transformation, the crown prince himself stared dumbfounded at his reflection. After this meticulous effort, his resemblance to Xie Yan had reached an astonishing 7 or 8 out of 10. Fu Yuan fixed his gaze on Li Mimi and me, his tone tinged with scrutiny. "I never realized before that my concubines, each and every one, were so deeply hidden." Li Mimi and I exchanged a glance, both of us curling our lips slightly. I spoke first, explaining casually, it's not about being hidden. I come from a brothel. These are all unsavory methods. I'm just grateful your highness doesn't mind. Unexpectedly, Li Mimi delivered an even sharper retort, Your Highness, do you know how I honed this particular skill? I used to apply makeup to the deceased. On busy days, I could paint 3 or 4 corpses in a single day. Fu Yuan. Judging by his expression, I guessed he was probably regretting something. Regretting being thoroughly outmaneuvered by Li Mimi. Through my survival experience from past lives, I observed, the system in that princess's hands undergoes a maintenance upgrade every month. During those days, she cannot use it. And this Qixi festival happened to fall within her system's maintenance window. Without the system's aid, she would be just like me, a flesh and blood mortal. The crown prince began mimicking Xia Xian's mannerisms and tone. All of this was preparation for the Qixi night. Is Xia Xian truly not going to meet her? This was the variable Fu Yuan was most uneasy about. These past few days, I noticed the crown prince had grown exceptionally dependent on me. I reassured him time and again, Your Highness, rest assured. When the time comes, I will definitely keep young Master Xia occupied. Your Highness will surely succeed. Fu Yuan nodded, solemnly promising me, Rong, if this truly succeeds, I shall reward you handsomely. You may ask for anything you desire. I lowered my gaze, smiling gently, Thank you, Your Highness. I have already considered what reward I shall request. What is it? Your Highness will know in due time. The Qixi festival night arrived as scheduled. On the Moon Yao Terrace, Princess Qingyao sat with Xia Xian. At the same time, in a palace tower not far away, I watched the scene from afar. Beside me sat another Xia Xian. The real Xia Xian. Sleepy girl. Xia Xian called out to me with a teasing tone. I lifted my head to look at him, my smile blooming. Xia Xian, I forgot to tell you, only those I like may call me sleepy girl. Hearing this, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he casually remarked, Is that so? Then kindly give me a name I may use. Not necessary. I paused briefly, my smile deepening, You needn't change how you address me. Continue calling me Shui Shui. Xia Xian paused for a moment, then let a lazy smile curve his lips. How many people call you by that name? I teased him deliberately, pretending to count on my fingers, not many. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4. The further I counted, the stiffer the smile on Xia Xiaolongjuan's lips became. By the time I reached 9, his expression had turned distinctly displeased. It seemed he was about to lose his temper. But I suddenly changed the subject, coaxing him with a smile, But you see, all the people I counted were girls. Only you, young Master Xia, are the only man? Xia Xian's expression softened slightly. Yet a hint of mockery flashed in his eyes. Shen Qiangqiang, do you think I'm so easy to fool? I looked utterly bewildered. Who's Shen Qiangqiang? Are you calling me? Do I look that poor? Xia Xian pulled out a book. The very one I'd given him earlier, urging him to read carefully. Surviving in this pain-in-the-ass world, Draft 18. He raised his cold, slender hand, pointing to the author's name beneath the title, and said flatly, It says Shen Qiangqiang, author. Isn't that you? My mouth twitched stiffly, Mr. Xia, I wrote Shen Rongrong, not Shen Qiangqiang. Silly. Xia Xian couldn't help but chuckle softly. Of course this young master knows what you wrote. Me. So he was deliberately mocking my terrible handwriting. I refused to accept defeat and naturally had to win one back. So I leaned forward and teased him, since young Master Xia already knew my name, why did you pretend not to know when you asked me just now? Xia Xian's expression stiffened. My smile grew even brighter. So, you also want to call me Shui Shui more, right? He paused, turning his face away with a hint of awkwardness. Didn't Miss Shui Shui invite me here tonight to watch the show? He propped his head up lazily with one hand, glancing across the way. The show has already begun. I turned to look. There. On the Yueyao terrace opposite. Princess Qingyao had already begun pouring wine for the crown prince. That wine is laced with a potion. A smile played on my lips as I looked at Xiaxian. It was originally meant for you. The betrothal between the Xia and Su families had been arranged since childhood. But later, Xiaxian discovered that the grown Princess Qingyao bore less and less resemblance to the person he remembered. He questioned it. He even searched for the girl from his memories. Yet everyone assumed it was his youthful infidelity that had caused his change of heart. Princess Qingyao was right before his eyes. Yet he no longer loved her. Xiayan's attitude toward Princess Qingyao was the root of the impending crisis. Princess Qingyao could wait no longer. She planned to use the Qixi festival rendezvous to ensnare Xiayan. As long as Xiayan drank her wine, she would sleep beside him. Soon, the palace servants would discover them. No one would suspect that the noble Princess Qingyao would sacrifice her virtue to frame the Marquis's heir. Especially since she was the darling of this world. By then, Xiaxian would be utterly defenseless. He would either have to marry her or face punishment. In my draft titled On Surviving in This Frustrating World, 18th version, I had detailed many future events. 3 months had passed since Xiayan obtained that book. Enough time for him to verify its authenticity. Princess Qingyao's Qixi night invitation and its hidden plot were also recorded within its pages. Additionally, I had included the Crown Prince's plans. Therefore, from the very beginning, I was certain Xiaxian would not go to meet Princess Qingyao tonight. He would come find me. To watch this spectacle together. I have seen that book. Xiaxian continued observing the movements on the Munyao terrace across the way as he asked me, with so many future events, how did Miss Shui foresee them? I recognized his probing tone. Though I spoke the truth, I had to feign jest, die a few more times, and you'll find out. What? Truth be told, I've died several lifetimes and reincarnated back. A mocking chuckle escaped Xiaxian's lips. Shui, do you take this young master for a child? I leaned close to his ear. No, I think you're the love of my life. I reincarnated specifically to marry you. Xiaxian seemed exasperated by my words. He sighed softly first. Then, a faint blush unexpectedly spread across his previously cold face. On the moon jade terrace opposite, the Crown Prince had already secretly swapped his wine cup with Princess Qingyao's. Without the system's assistance, Princess Qingyao couldn't possibly detect the Crown Prince's maneuver. She had schemed so meticulously, yet never imagined that one day, she herself would be outmaneuvered, trapped in her own trap. At this very moment, she slumped limply into the arms of the Crown Prince posing as Xiaxian. The show's about to begin. Let's go see. As I spoke, I casually took Xiaxian's hand and rose to leave. Xiaxian lowered his gaze to our clasped hands, his tone a mix of threat and awkwardness. Shui, men and women should not touch. I paused, then smiled softly. Xiaxian, I don't kiss other men. I only kiss you. After hearing my shameless sweet talk, Xiaxian stared at me, his gaze fixed and stunned. His crimson robes bathed in moonlight, the hem fluttering in the night breeze. I tugged at him again. Come on, let's go. We'll miss the show if we don't hurry. Yet he remained frozen in place. In fact, the moment I turned to leave, he yanked me back. Wrapping his arms around my waist, he pulled me close. Repeat what you just said. I said, come on, let's go. We'll miss the show if we don't hurry. The line before that. The line before that was, come on. Xiayan took a deep breath, as if struggling to restrain something. Then he tilted his head slightly, drew near, and curved his thin lips into a half-smile, enunciating each syllable as he called my name, Shen. Shui. Shui. His teasing voice brushed against my ear. You know which line I want to hear. I tilted my head, a smile spreading across my face. So young Master Xia enjoys hearing sweet nothings from me, do you? Fine, I'll indulge you one more time. I'll say. I don't kiss other men. I only kiss. Xiaxian's kiss descended. His jet-black eyes filled with scattered sparks of desire. The moonlight at the horizon was cool, yet his lips were warm. When he released me, bathed in moonlight, I saw his eyes had turned red at some point. You think changing your skin would make this young master not recognize you? Little crybaby. His voice was slightly hoarse, tinged with a hint of grievance. Little crybaby. Back then, at my mother's memorial hall, that's exactly how he'd called me. Even earlier than that. When I was young, I'd gone to play at the Xia residence. I insisted on eating the highest, reddest fruit at the very top of their tree. Xia Yan laughed, teasing me about being so fussy, yet without a moment's hesitation, he climbed up to pick it for me. He ended up breaking his leg. The boy's face was deathly pale, not uttering a sound. But I was overcome with guilt, wailing so loudly it shook the heavens. He handed me the fiery red fruit in his hand, ruffling my hair helplessly. Didn't I give you the fruit? Why are you still crying? Are you a crybaby? I sniffled back. Xiaxian, your leg's broken and it must hurt so much, why aren't you crying? Lying on the bed, barely able to move, Xiaxian still forced a smile to soothe me. It doesn't hurt. No need to cry. But that only made me feel worse. Seeing you suffer breaks my heart, Xiaxian. I'll cry for you. After that, he always teased me about being a crybaby. But now, I lifted my finger, smiling faintly as I brushed his slightly damp eyes. How dare you call me a crybaby, Xia? His eyes were far redder than mine now. I asked Xiaxian how he recognized me. After hearing his explanation, I finally understood. Beyond the deliberate hints in my speech that he had picked up on, the main reason was actually my dreadful handwriting. Your writing was always terrible. You always turned the character wrong, beauty, and the line clouds make me think of fine clothes, flowers make me think of beauty into qiong, poverty. I was speechless, he continued. When he first saw me, he thought the handwriting in that book was a coincidence. After all, it was rare for a girl's handwriting to remain so terrible from childhood to adulthood without any improvement. That was indeed unusual. Me. But as the events recorded in that book unfolded one after another, his suspicions toward me grew. Even after covert investigations, my identity showed no flaws. Yet he instinctively believed I was the person he suspected. Until just now, when I blurted out that sentence without thinking, Xiaxian, I won't kiss any other man. I only kiss you. His eyes reddened as he asked me, do you know? Those were the last words you spoke to me, after falling asleep on my back before you left. Was that so? Truthfully, the moment my soul was replaced, my memories grew hazy. I only recall Xia Yan snapping at me, demanding if I no longer wished to marry him. Back then, I thought to myself, I must agree to him. I will marry him. I would only kiss him from now on. I thought I hadn't had time to say it. Turns out, it wasn't a dream. I did say it. And he remembered it until now. Truthfully, every incarnation of Xia Yan could recognize me. It was just a matter of sooner or later. This lifetime, thanks to that crappy book I wrote. It turned out to be the earliest time Xia Yan had ever recognized me. I felt uneasy. The reason I never told Xia Yan myself was, first, fear he wouldn't believe me, and second, based on past experience. Whenever Xia Yan recognized me, it meant Princess Qingyao would soon come to kill me. I would face my worst nightmare. Not death. Not endless rebirth. But Xia Yan would forget me. He would only remember Su Qingyao, the fake Su Qingyao. He would no longer remember Xin Shui Shui. When Xia Yan and I arrived at the Moon Jade Terrace, Princess Qingyao lay drunkenly in the Crown Prince's arms, her cheeks flushed crimson. The drug she'd taken was called Drunken Dream. When mixed with wine, it swiftly induced intoxication. It wasn't exactly a love potion, but it rendered one unconscious. It was sufficient for the charade. At that moment, the princess clutched the crown prince's robe, murmuring drunken words, Xiaxian, you can't escape. This time, I will definitely conquer you. Fu Yuan stiffened visibly at her words. His expression betrayed a hint of obsession, his eyes flickering with suppressed anger. Yet he steeled himself, lowering his voice to soothe her, Yao, it's cold here. Let's continue this in the bedchamber. I could almost see the green mist swirling above his head. But Fu Yuan was, after all, the crown prince who had weathered years of open and covert attacks while maintaining his position in the Eastern Palace. He was a master of restraint and calculation, always plotting his moves carefully. Even now, as his beloved's heart surged with passion and she called out another man's name, he managed to endure it. Witnessing this scene, I couldn't help but marvel. His love for this princess truly ran deep. But just as he was about to lift her away, he turned and saw Xia Yan. Fu Yuan. Xia Yan. Their eyes met. Clothing clash and facial resemblance. Fu Yuan's face instantly darkened like an iron pot. Xia Yan, however, remained utterly composed. His gaze swept lightly over the crown prince's attire before he remarked, with neither warmth nor coldness, "Greetings, your highness." Fu Yuan couldn't muster any goodwill towards Xia Yan, so he turned to me and asked in a deep voice, "Shenrongrong, why did you bring him along?" I lowered my gaze, appearing sincere as I replied, "Your highness, if you wish to accomplish your plans tonight, you'll need young Master Xia's assistance." Fu Yuan glanced at Xia Xian and sneered coldly, "Is the young master of the Xia family willing to lend a hand?" Fu Yuan's distrust was understandable. After all, he was plotting to seize Xia Xian's marriage to the princess. Xia Xian suddenly chuckled softly, "Why not assist your highness? Only tonight, I wish to claim a person from you." Though he addressed the crown prince as your highness, his tone carried an inherent arrogance. Xia Xian gently drew me into his embrace, meeting Fu Yuan's gaze as he declared, word by word, "The person I demand is Miss Shenrongrong." Xia Xian's voice was too melodious. It sent tremors through my heart. Yet I buried my head deep, fearing I might accidentally laugh out loud before Fu Yuan. Yet Fu Yuan remained silent for a long while, offering no response. I couldn't wait any longer. Finally, I forced myself to compose my expression and lifted my head to observe the crown prince's face. Instead, I saw him staring at me with profound intensity. In the depths of his dark eyes, a hint of reluctance? This was utterly ridiculous. I've been his stand-in for countless lifetimes. This time, I was finally about to fulfill his lifelong wish. He was holding his true love in his arms, yet he was actually reluctant to let go of the stand-in? Seems I need to fan the flames a bit more, your highness, time is precious. The emperor and empress will soon return from the stargazing tower to their chambers. On Qixi night, the emperor and empress would also visit the stargazing tower together. Tonight's plan required the crown prince and princess Qingyao's mutual affection, this embrace of mutual desire, to be witnessed by the emperor and empress to be fully realized. I was reminding him, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. He must choose one. Only then did Fu Yuan realize the urgency. But by this point, he had surely guessed that the relationship between Xia Yan and me was far from simple. The green mist above his head seemed to grow heavier. Finally, Fu Yuan looked at Xia Yan, his voice deep and grave, "Shenrongrong is my concubine." Xia Xian's lips curved into a faint smile, "Yes, your highness. I am aware." Fu Yuan continued, "She hails from a brothel." Xia Xian gave a faint nod, "Miss Shen has informed the servant of that as well." His gaze clearly conveyed, "So what?" Fu Yuan's eyes flashed with scorn, who would have thought the young Master Xia would take a fancy to such a lowly woman. The crown prince was stubborn and unpredictable, his attitude toward his stand-ins fluctuating between favor and disdain. Thus, his humiliating words had long ceased to surprise me. But Xia Xian. When the crown prince uttered lowly woman, I felt the knuckles of Xia Xian's slender fingers tighten. A shadow of darkness deepened in his eyes. He was clearly enraged. The next moment, Xia Xian indeed let out a derisive snort. He took my hand and stroked it gently. "A woman's worth is never measured by her birth. Miss Shen possesses her own unique charm. It is only because your highness fails to recognize it that I, your humble servant, treasure her all the more." This was a subtle jab at Fu Yuan's blindness. He truly lived up to his reputation as a sharp-tongued wit. I deliberately scratched Xia Xian's palm. He turned his head to look at me, the gloom in his eyes completely vanishing, replaced only by a carefree yet tender smile. Fu Yuan was momentarily speechless, finally conceding defeat. After all, he was the crown prince. Moreover, no matter how one looked at it, he was the one who had first snatched Xia Xian's marriage, putting him at fault from the start. Things had come to this point. His most pressing task was to ensure he secured Princess Qingyao in his arms. Fu Yuan glanced at me, "Begin." I summoned Li Mimi, who had been lurking beneath the Yueyao terrace. Li Mimi arrived carrying a wooden tray laden with bottles and jars. I whispered to Xia Xian, "It's time to remove the crown prince's disguise." He asked, Was this all your idea from the very beginning? Yes. Xiaxian understood, then chuckled playfully, unexpectedly praising me. Sleepy girl, you truly are brilliant. After Li Nini's meticulous work, the crown prince shed his crimson robes, returning to his usual self. He no longer played the role of Xiaxian. Instead, as the crown prince of the Eastern Palace, he descended the Moon Jade Terrace cradling Princess Qingyao, heading toward the sleeping quarters. Court attendants along the way witnessed Princess Qingyao nestled in the crown prince's embrace. He also coincidentally bumped into the emperor and empress descending from the stargazing tower. Even more fortuitously, Xiaxian happened to be approaching from the opposite direction. Princess Qingyao was thoroughly intoxicated. Like a small kitten, she wrapped her arms around the crown prince's neck, murmuring in a haze, "Marry me, will you?" The crown prince played his part to the fullest, feigning attempts to rouse Princess Qingyao. "Io, father and mother are here. Stop fooling around." But Princess Qingyao slurred drunkenly, "Then why don't you hurry and petition for an imperial decree to marry me?" Crown prince. Even he likely hadn't anticipated this. That his long-cherished love would accidentally play along so perfectly. The emperor and empress had been considering an arranged marriage for Princess Qingyao these past days. Originally, their favored candidate was Xiaxian. But tonight's scene, Princess Qingyao was embracing the crown prince. And to make matters worse, Xiaxian had witnessed this intimate moment. Under these circumstances, bestowing the marriage upon Xiaxian was now utterly inappropriate. At this critical juncture, young Master Xia added calmly, "So it seems the princess's heart belongs to His Highness the Crown Prince. Then, this servant wishes you both 100 years of bliss and the early blessing of an heir." With that, no one could say another word. And so, amidst this chaotic farce, the affair between Princess Qingyao and the Crown Prince became known throughout the palace. And finally, Xia Yan led me away from the Eastern Palace under cover of night. Yet as I gazed upon the imperial city shrouded in darkness, a growing unease settled in my heart. I knew that come morning, Princess Qingyao would awaken, and her system would soon be restored. That would be the most difficult crisis I would face next. Xiaxian had intended to take me back to the Marquis's residence. But I knew his parents had always mistaken that fake princess for me. To avoid trouble, I asked Xiaxian to take me to his villa outside the main estate for now. After escorting me into the bedroom, Xiaxian had servants bring warm tea. He personally poured a cup and handed it to me. Holding the tea, I felt a bit dazed. Xiaxian ruffled my hair, as if petting a puppy. "What are you spacing out for? Drink up." After speaking, he moved his fingertip to my lips. "Why are they so dry?" My cheeks flushed slightly. I raised a finger to touch my lips and only then realized I'd been up all night. Though I'd appeared confident and steady as an old dog, I was parched and tense, not having taken a single sip of water. He watched me finish the tea. Only then did he lazily lift his eyelids and ask, "This villa was newly built just a month ago. Outsiders don't know about it. How did you find out?" I answered truthfully, "I scouted the location in my previous life." Xia Yan fell silent. He seemed to be pondering the phrase "previous life" I had used. Under the midnight lamps and candles, I recounted each successive rebirth in detail. Fearing Xia Yan might doubt me, I emphasized every nuance repeatedly. My account was several times more detailed than the tattered book I'd given him. Xia Yan listened quietly, his fingertips occasionally tapping out rhythms on the table. Toward the end, he seemed deep in thought. "So you're saying we must destroy the system in her possession to end this?" I nodded, yet frowned in worry, but I've only overheard a few of her conversations with the system. I have no idea what form the system actually takes. I'd suspected the various objects worn by that princess. Hairpins? Hair ornaments? Bracelets? Jade pendants? I believe whatever exists must have form. But my chances to get close to her were too few. And that system was too hidden. That's why I never figured it out. Understood. Xia Yan responded softly, his expression calm, his thoughts unreadable. I felt uneasy and couldn't help but confirm again, "Xia Yan, do you believe what I'm saying?" Under the candlelight, his gaze fixed on me as he smiled softly. "If I didn't believe you, would I have brought you home?" "True. After all, that tattered book of mine had already proven many future events. And he even believed that bizarre claim about my body being possessed. I gazed at the moonlight outside the window. Xian, I don't want to reincarnate anymore. Xian propped his chin on his hand. Oh? Isn't rebirth a good thing? I squeezed his fingers, feeling the warmth in his palm like a lifetime ago, my voice catching slightly. Dying too many times hurts. And every time before I die, you turn into a complete fool who doesn't recognize me. Xian, that version of you really makes me furious enough to die. The memory only made me feel more wrong the more I thought about it. My nose turned red as I glared up at him, my voice fierce and sharp. You're not allowed to marry that woman. You're not allowed to forget me. You're not allowed to turn into a fool. You're not allowed to. Before I could finish, Xian's thumb suddenly pressed against my lips. He curved his lips, his tone teasing and slightly wicked, yet his gaze was intensely gentle. Just now, these little lips were dry and parched, hardly inviting to kiss. But now, they seemed ready. Before I could grasp the implication behind his words, his scorching kiss had already sealed mine. Xia Xiaolongjuan's lips were warm, tender, and lingering, yet like a blazing sun. In an instant, they set my heart aflutter and scorched my ears. The air felt increasingly thin, my vision darkening, and I couldn't help but beg for mercy. Only then did Xian slowly release me. What? Already can't take it? He shifted his kiss to my eyelashes, his voice laced with amusement. Your body needs nourishing. Otherwise, how will you endure after we're married? His kisses left me lightheaded, my flushed face pressed against his chest as I gasped for breath, my thoughts hazy. Marriage. So he'd already thought that far ahead. But could this life truly succeed? Noticing my unease, Xian bent down again, cupping my face with a teasing smile. You schemed like a fox before. Now, at the crucial moment, you're afraid? His eyes crinkled in gentle amusement, his thin lips parting with a languid tone. Your Highness knows death hurts terribly. This time, I won't let you suffer again. Trust me this once? His tone was like coaxing a little girl. I buried my face in his embrace and nodded. If even Xian couldn't be trusted in this world, then what fun would rebirth hold? Here, it seemed everyone adored that princess. Only he could recognize Shui, fall in love with Shui. How could I not trust him? I only worried about him. Xian, have you noticed your memory's been failing lately? Or gaps in your recollections? I asked him with deadpan seriousness. Xian fell silent, his gaze deepening as he looked at me and countered. Io, that one teasing remark you made in your sleep back then, this young master has remembered it to this day. And now you complain my memory is poor? I faltered slightly. Io, Su Qingyao. These names, they were indeed mine, once. But they've been usurped for so long that now, to my ears, they sound like a distant echo from another lifetime. I clasped Xian's long-fingered hand tightly, lifting my gaze with a smile. I know you'll always remember Su Qingyao. But starting tonight, remember me by a different name. Forget Su Qingyao. Remember Shui. Will you? Xian paused, then understood. He pinched my earlobe, his warm voice brushing against my ear. Done. I remember. The future wife of this young master is called Shui. The next day, Princess Qingyao never came to find me. I heard. The crown prince, determined to see it through, had gone directly to the emperor to request a royal marriage decree. The palace buzzed with whispers over this matter. Though the emperor hadn't issued a formal decree yet, his attitude clearly leaned toward granting the marriage between the crown prince and Princess Qingyao. Thus, overnight, Princess Qingyao became the crown prince's betrothed. Xian said, she even went to explain to the emperor that the matter between her and the crown prince was just a misunderstanding. But the crown prince didn't mention any of that. He only insisted that their feelings for each other were mutual. Holding the pear-flavored sugar cake Xian had specially ordered through a queue, I took a light bite. So who does the emperor believe? Your guess? I pondered, nibbling as I spoke. I'd wager the emperor trusts no one but his own eyes. The situation had reached this point. I found myself curious, even if that princess possessed a universal adoration system, could it truly alter the emperor's resolve? The world may cherish and adore her, but this matter touched upon the dignity of the imperial family. Public displays of affection with the crown prince, followed by denial afterward. What would the emperor think? That princess would likely have her hands full for a while. As my thoughts swirled, Xian suddenly drew near. His cool fingertips brushed away sugar crumbs from my lips, then slipped them into his own mouth. He smacked his lips. This sweet? I promptly popped another piece into his mouth, grinning. Remember this taste? Shui loves sweets, the sweeter, the better. Xian always preferred bland, plain flavors. Even the slightest hint of spice would make his face flush crimson, coughing and choking. But I'd loved both sweet and spicy since childhood. Accommodating me, he'd send people to buy treats from Hongzuan Pavilion in the western part of town. They'd bring back enough to fill half a table, all for me alone. I felt he wasn't raising a wife, but rather fattening a piglet. Xian finished the pear cake I'd forced into his hands. His thin lips parted, his tone laced with feigned disdain, yet the curve of his lips betrayed utter indulgence. I remember it well. But in this young master's opinion, you shouldn't be called Shui. You should be called Sugar Jar. I watched his painted eyes smile and thought to myself, if only this sweetness could last forever. But such days didn't last long. 4 days later, Princess Qingyao arrived, this lifetime. She didn't send her shadow guards to assassinate me. Nor did she devise schemes to force me to take poison. Dressed in splendid brocade robes, she arrived at Xian's villa with great pomp, surrounded by palace attendants. When our eyes met, she curved her lips into a smile that seemed playful yet haughty. So you're Shenrongrong, born in a brothel? Did you think rebirth would let you outsmart me? I raised an eyebrow, even as my heart pounded violently. Yet my gaze remained calm as I looked at her. Judging from past lives' experience, though she possessed the system, she knew nothing of my rebirth. But now, she actually knew? I carefully analyzed her psychology once more, then began to reflect. No, my expression was wrong. I shouldn't appear too calm, she'd grow suspicious. I needed to show some shock. So, I turned to Princess Qingyao with a look of utter surprise. What did you say? Sure enough. Princess Qingyao finally gave a satisfied snort. Shenrongrong, you'd best not play the smart aleck. Seeing her smug expression, I knew she believed my performance. This was truly thanks to all those years serving as the Crown Prince's stand-in. Though my role back then was rather limited. I only had to pretend to sleep. Still, it was a form of training, I suppose. Just then, I spotted the Crown Prince standing beside her. Fu Yuan had actually followed her out of the palace to this place? I was his former stand-in. Xian was his romantic rival. Frankly, whether he accompanied this princess to find Xian or to find me, neither scenario seemed like something a sane person would do. The Crown Prince must have had another dozen pounds of water poured into his brain? Fu Yuan and I exchanged a meaningful glance before bowing deeply. Your Highness. He stared at me, hesitating for a long moment before finally curling his lips into a smile and calling out, Yao. I froze, utterly incredulous. But quickly regaining my composure, I turned to Princess Qingyao. Did you tell him? The princess curved her lips. Wearing the face that had once been mine, she flashed a smile that seemed innocent and pure. How could I bear to hide it from my dear Crown Prince brother when he's been so kind to me? But you've been by his side for so long. Seeing how deeply he's fallen for you, yet keeping the truth from him all this time. Miss Shin, you really have a heart of stone. In just a few words, her skill at shifting blame was masterful. Yes, I knew. The Crown Prince's white moonlight was me. But, after becoming Shenrongrong, I only wanted to go along with the mistake. I never thought of telling him. Born into a military family, I excelled at horse training from childhood. I met the Crown Prince when I was 10. It was during an autumn hunt. The adults had gone deep into the forest to hunt fierce beasts. The younger princes and princesses stayed with us, the children of the generals. We rode small horses, hunting tame creatures for mere entertainment. The Crown Prince was frail in his youth and unskilled at archery. Yet as the legitimate heir, he was drilled by the Empress to excel in everything. At 12, he was pale and frail. He mounted a spirited tribute horse. The horse, bullying Fu Yuan's weakness, soon threw him halfway off its back. Yet stubbornly competitive, he uttered not a sound. Gritting his teeth, he clutched the reins tightly, refusing to let go. I knew from experience that if dragged by the horse, his life would be in grave danger. Father had taught me. Born into a military family, we were destined to be loyal to the sovereign and protect him. Fu Yuan was the crown prince, the future sovereign. So I employed the horse-handling skills father taught me, saving him at the critical moment. The autumn wind whistled coldly. His hands and arms were streaked with blood. I pulled out a jar of medicine for him. It was father's finest external remedy, reserved only for the battlefield. Yet he hid it away, unwilling to use it. From that moment, I keenly sensed the crown prince's gaze toward me had changed. He began softening his usually cool voice, like others, calling me Io. He often sent me the latest fashionable hairpins and jewelry, pastries and cookies popular in the capital. Seeing me within the palace walls was difficult for him, yet every time I entered the palace to play, I would always run into him. When he looked at me, his eyes held anticipation, alight as if gazing upon the moon. "Yao, when you grow up, would you like to be crown princess?" He once asked me this. Back then, the crown prince stood atop the towering city gate, with the magnificent palace walls and the distant setting sun behind him. He always seemed so lonely, as if burdened by endless books and unfinished studies. His voice was hoarse and cautious when he asked. It felt like he was begging me to enter this cage, to rescue him, to keep him company. But as I gazed at the brilliant crimson clouds in the western sky, I thought of another flamboyant youth, fiery and passionate, clad in scarlet. I smiled at the crown prince, my tone gentle yet resolute. "I will not be crown princess. I am destined to marry Xia Yan. Xia Yuan will inherit his title. I will be the marquis's wife." From that moment, the light in Fu Yuan's eyes extinguished. He grew increasingly cold and isolated, his gaze forever clouded by an indelible gloom. Until later, I became Shinrongrong, bought from a brothel, then entered his eastern palace as a Qing player. On the surface, I was Princess Qingyao's stand-in. In truth, I was merely a substitute for myself. How utterly laughable. I do not regret saving Fu Yuan. But if given another chance, I would have stayed quietly by his side, clutching my rabbit, never intervening again. That autumn hunt at the imperial enclosure. He had palace guards specifically tasked with protecting him. Without me, he might have suffered, but he wouldn't have died. Yet because I acted. 9 young women found themselves trapped behind the palace walls, simply because they bore some resemblance to the me he remembered. They became caged birds, trapped within the imperial city. In every rebirth, I sought ways to befriend them. I found every excuse to spend my days with them, playing music, brewing tea, passing the time. They cursed the crown prince's white moonlight. I joined their curses, railing fiercer than any of them. Alas! I cannot reincarnate back to that year's hunting grounds. In every cycle, I awaken only upon the crown prince's bed, as Shinshui. Now, I've largely deciphered the princess's tactics. She must have been driven to desperation. That's why she resorted to this tactic that wounds the enemy 1,000-fold but cuts herself 800. To avoid becoming crown princess, she burned her bridges, revealing to the crown prince that I am the real Su Qingyao. Though I have no idea how she explained such an outlandish claim, it's clear the crown prince actually believed her. Now he and she have become allies once more. The crown prince intends to seize me back. And she, leveraging his power, seeks to pry me away from Xia Yan without a fight. Even now, her desire to marry Xia Yan hasn't completely died. Sure enough, the princess's gaze swept over me, then over Fu Yuan, as she smiled faintly and asked, "Brother Crown Prince, shall we bring Miss Shin back?" Fu Yuan didn't respond to her. He walked step by step until he stood before me. His cold, deep eyes fixed on me. "Yao, come back with me. Shall we?" His tone now mirrored that moment years ago beneath the Sunset Palace Tower, when he'd asked, "Yao, when you grow up, would you like to be crown princess?" His obsession remained unchanged. My choice remained unchanged from those days. "Your Highness jests. I've barely escaped this place, how could I ever return?" A flicker of bitter anger crossed Fu Yuan's face, yet it quickly smoothed over. He curved his lips into a bitter, self-mocking smile. Yao, you've never understood me. And I've never known what I could truly do to win your affection. After General Su's death, I thought after 3 years in the palace, you'd finally call me Crown Prince Brother and smile at me. But it turns out, that wasn't you at all. I glanced at Fu Yuan, then shifted my gaze to Princess Qingyao, who wore a faint, ambiguous smile. Of course, none of that was me. During those 3 years, Princess Qingyao occupied my body. She entered the palace, guided by the system, mimicking my every move, beginning to win over every person in the palace who could benefit her. She exploited the advantage of being the white moonlight. Using methods I despised, she dangled the crown prince's affections before him, until she had completely won his favor. Later, she even employed the same tactics to pursue Xia Yan. But young Master Xia, not only was his tongue sharp, his eyes were piercing too. He saw through her fishing and farming scheme, and remained convinced that it wasn't me. He began searching for me, going so far as to investigate all manner of strange and bizarre occurrences. Until, in every lifetime, I threw myself into his arms as Shui Shui, Io, the princess. Xia Yan could distinguish each identity. Yet Fu Yuan remained trapped in the dream woven for him by Princess Qingyao. He couldn't tell. I smiled faintly and asked Fu Yuan, Your Highness, are you truly incapable of loving anyone but me? What purpose did those stand-ins in the Eastern Palace serve? Your Highness, ask yourself honestly, is it me you truly cherish? Or that elusive shadow from your youth? Fu Yuan froze at my words. His expression seemed lost in memory. I pressed my advantage. Your Highness, do you recall promising me a royal favor the day before Qixi? Please release those substitutes in the Eastern Palace. Fu Yuan stared at me intently. After a moment, he curved his lips slightly. I said that if I could marry Io, only then would I grant Shinrong a reward. I can release them, but what about Io? Will she return? His face paled slightly, revealing that sickly, obsessive smile. The shadow is you. The one who yearns but cannot have is you. My crown princess should be you too. I fell silent. I didn't want to speak with him anymore. His obsession had reached this point, he was likely beyond saving. Yet Fu Yuan didn't rush to force me back to the Eastern Palace. Rather than dragging me away, he seemed more intent on letting me see the truth for myself, to bow my head and yield. Yao, give up. Xia Yan won't recognize you anymore. Even though I'd anticipated this, even though this outcome was part of my plan, when Fu Yuan spoke those words, my heart still sank. Princess Qingyao leaned close to my ear. With the air of a victor, she whispered with a smile, Do you know where Brother Xian went? He went to buy me pastries. Curious how I knew you were a reincarnator? Because I got this from Xian, she waved the manuscript titled How to Survive in This Painful World, Draft 18 before my eyes. Honestly, I thought I could just pick any little world to retire in peace. If it weren't for needing the male lead's favorability, I wouldn't bother with you. Who knew you and the male lead would be such a tough challenge? And you can even reincarnate? My fingers tightened slightly. She casually flipped through a few pages. You've made me fail over and over, forcing me to restart the mission several times. The system keeps complaining it's about to overload and can't restart anymore. Fine, I won't kill you this time. Killing you would just make Xia Yan go berserk again. You can just watch Xia Yan and me be together. That's not so bad. Hearing her say this, I knew I'd bet right. My rebirth was connected to Princess Qingyao restarting the system. But she was different from me. I retained memories from every lifetime. But every time she reboots the system, perhaps to maintain that so-called quest difficulty, her memories reboot too. Each life, for her, is a fresh start from zero. She thinks reading my rebirth records gives her an advantage. But who says everything in that book is true? On surviving in this pain-in-the-ass world, Draft 18. Though the title remains unchanged, it shouldn't actually be called Draft 18. It's already Draft 19. I've revised it. Part of that book was written earlier for Xiaxian. But another part was deliberately crafted these past days, refined together with Xiaxian, playing along with her plan, written specifically for her to see. The purpose? To lower her guard. to coax words out of her. As for her weakness, I believe I've found it. System overload. She cannot reboot. Therefore, this is my final opportunity. Likewise, hers. I watched her occupy my body, wear my face, and speak those shameless words through my mouth. I wanted to mock her delusions, but I held back. After all, according to the scenario, I was supposed to be panicking right now. So I played along, wearing an expression of heartbreak and despair. What have you done to Xia Xian? Princess Qingyao curved her lips into a smile and nodded toward a direction. See for yourself. As she spoke, a familiar figure approached, slowly walking from afar. Xia Xian had returned. His complexion was pale, his lips lacking their usual color. The once vibrant brilliance had vanished from those cold, demonically beautiful phoenix eyes. He resembled a puppet whose will had been manipulated. He passed by expressionless, yet paused slightly beside me. Xia Xian turned his head to look at me. His eyes flickered, and his brow furrowed, as if struggling to recall something. But soon, he clutched his head, his face contorted in agony. I couldn't hold back any longer. My eyes reddened, and tears streamed down my face. Xia Xian, it hurts, doesn't it? I raised my hand, carefully reaching out to touch his head. I knew he probably didn't remember Shen Shui anymore. But he was trying to remember. He was trying to break free from the system's control over him. The more he struggled, the more excruciating his headache became. Though we had anticipated all this, the agony Xia Xian endured in this very moment was real. My heart ached for him, and my tears flowed more freely. Seeing my tears, Xia Xian slowly raised his hand. I froze. Xia Xian? He seemed to want to wipe my tears, but his motion halted midway. Exhausted, his body swayed precariously. With immense effort and stiffness, he managed to utter 2 words, cry. Baby. My heart trembled violently. Who said he didn't recognize me? Even though my Xia Xiaolingjun had been turned into this simpleton by that damned system, he still remembered me. I threw myself into his arms, clinging tightly to him. I cried and laughed. I felt like a fool myself. But over on the other side, Princess Qingyao's expression was far from pleasant. Her voice crackled with fury, so intense she didn't even bother to hide it from me or the crown prince. She shouted directly into the empty air, System. What the hell is going on? Keep boosting my control and brainwashing permissions. So what if it shaves years off his lifespan? If it doesn't work on him, this time it'll work on me. Overload? You've been yelling about overload for years, yet you've never actually crashed. Boost it! She resembled a high roller throwing down a fortune at a gambling den. Yet she also resembled a drowning victim desperately clutching at a lifeline. Her voice brimmed with tension, fury, resentment, struggle, and fear. The next moment, she smiled slowly. Xia Yan suddenly shoved me away. He turned his head and coughed up a mouthful of blood. His face swiftly drained of color, turning as pale as fragile paper. Xia Yan. I'd never seen Xia Yan this weak before. In any of my past rebirths, the system had never harmed his body like this. Terrified, I rushed to support him. But midway, my hand was stopped by Princess Qingyao. She pulled Xia Xian to her side. Then, she took out a handkerchief, seemingly kindly wiping the blood from his lips. In truth, she couldn't care less about his life or death. She addressed him with feigned indifference. Brother Xia Xian, it's time for you to dine with me. Very well. Xia Xian replied. His voice held not a single ripple of emotion. Princess Qingyao was a madwoman. She began parading him like a trophy, forcing not only Xia Xian to dine with her, but also me and the crown prince to sit and watch. The crown prince had likely never witnessed such a bizarre spectacle. Or perhaps he was already regretting aligning himself with that madwoman. Beneath the table, he clasped my hand, his voice low. Io, don't be afraid. I will protect you. I coldly pulled my sleeve away. You've done a splendid job protecting me. Next time, there'll be no need. Fu Yuan's expression stiffened slightly. He looked at me with a hint of hurt, his gaze darkening. I ignored him, my eyes fixed intently across the table. Because the one who truly protected me was there. Xia Yan kept serving dishes to Princess Qingyao without pause. He was so weak he barely had any strength, his hands trembling even as he held his chopsticks. Yet he filled her bowl to the brim. The dishes piled up like a small mountain built of chili peppers. Princess Qingyao enjoyed her meal while deliberately provoking us, Crown Prince brother, Miss Shin, you should eat too. However, halfway through lunch, Princess Qingyao began to lose patience. Xia Xian, why do you keep serving me spicy dishes? Replace them. Xia Xian paused slightly. Then, with numb compliance, he replied, yes. So he began piling various sweets before her, candied green plums, pear sugar cakes, jujube paste pastries. Princess Qingyao's expression darkened. Why have you replaced everything with sweets? Could you make it lighter? A trace of bewilderment flitted across Xia Xian's face. I watched silently, and as I watched, my eyes grew sore. Can't you see? He's not serving you at all. He's serving Shin Shui Shui. Shin Shui Shui loved both spicy and sweet. Spicy must be fiery like the blazing sun. Sweet must be tender and lingeringly fragrant. The moment I uttered the name Shin Shui Shui, Xia Xian suddenly lifted his gaze and looked at me. Immediately after, his expression twisted with struggle once more. Yet, though his face contorted in pain, his eyes gradually grew clear. Shin Shui Shui. His thin lips parted, calling my name weakly. Then, as more blood spilled from the corners of his mouth, he flashed me a defiant smile. Why are you crying? I told you long ago, my memory is perfectly fine. I grasped his hand. Xia Yan. Why do you say I'm crying? He was wounded like this. My heart ached, I was crying for him. Seeing this, Princess Qingyao questioned the system in disbelief. System, what's going on? Didn't we increase the control permissions? This time, even we heard the voice emanating from that system. It was an emotionless, eerie tone. Emergency report, conquest mission deemed failed. Warning! Warning! System overload detected. Target Xia Xian has achieved counter-control. Counter-control progress, 50%. 80%. 99%. Warning! System self-destruction imminent. Supervising Soul, Hu Xiaoyao, has repeatedly tampered with the character and violated mission protocols. The soul will be detained by the Time-Space Administration Bureau. Hu Xiaoyao's associated data will now be reset to 0. The princess screamed in refusal. Impossible. No. A strange light seemed to appear in the sky. Just as I tried to make out what it was, the light became blindingly intense. An unprecedented wave of exhaustion washed over me, compelling me to sleep against my will. The last fragment of memory. All I recall is a crisp ding after that sound. Everything fell into stillness. I reincarnated again and again and again and again. Wait, no. This doesn't feel like the Crown Prince's bed. I didn't reincarnate. I simply woke up. Opening my eyes, I saw Xia Yan's face. He gazed down at me, one hand propping his chin, the other brushing a strand of my hair into his fingers to play with. Meeting my bleary eyes, he smiled. Awake? If Lady Sleep has had her fill, might you spare some time to marry this young master? Huh? Still groggy, I sat up and surveyed my surroundings. Only then did I realize I was inside the Xia Marquis's residence. The entire room and courtyard had been transformed into a sea of crimson, plastered with double happiness characters everywhere. Confused, I asked, Xia Xian, what on earth is going on? Xia Xian pulled me into his embrace. His complexion was still slightly pale, his illness not yet fully retreated, and he wore a hint of grievance. Yet his tone was sharp, almost accusatory. Nothing much. Just felt it was too hard to win you over. So while you were unconscious these past days, I went ahead and prepared the wedding hall. The moment you awoke, we'd immediately pay homage to heaven and earth. I fell silent. It actually made perfect sense. Marrying him was proving impossibly difficult. Suddenly, staring at his face, I recalled the scene before falling asleep and grabbed his hand. Xia Xian, how is your health? I remembered Princess Qingyao mentioning while controlling him that his lifespan would be shortened. Xia Xian saw through my thoughts. His beautifully arched brows narrowed slightly, the corners of his lips curled upward in a faint smile. What's a few years of life lost if it means getting you back? Worst case, you can just stew me a daily serving of 10-ingredient tonics from now on. Feed those lost years right back into me, won't you? He said it so casually. But it cut deep into my heart. I raised my hand to touch my own face, and then something else came to mind. Hurriedly, I scrambled to get up and look in the mirror. My body hadn't changed back. I was still Shinrongrong. Everything connected to Su Qingyao seemed to have vanished from this world. No one remembered her except me and Xia Xian. People only remembered the Su general and his wife, heroes who had sacrificed their lives for the nation. Yet, miraculously, they had forgotten Su Qingyao ever existed. Even the crown prince had forgotten her. In truth, the crown prince hadn't merely forgotten Su Qingyao. He had forgotten Shinrongrong as well. He had even distributed a substantial sum of silver to each of the 9 unnamed, unrecognized girls in the Eastern Palace, sending them out of the palace. When Xia Xian and I married, I sent invitations to all 9 of my former sisters. I invited them to accompany me on my wedding day. They came happily, though they seemed puzzled as to why I, the future wife of the crown prince, would extend invitations to them, former consorts of the crown prince. This truly defied social convention. They had forgotten me too. But it didn't matter. Their individual tastes remained unchanged. Li Mimi gifted me a set of green stone makeup she had crafted herself. Wang Xiao presented me with a box of lotus root powder pastries from her own shop, and casually promised me lifetime free tasting privileges. Li Shizhen personally painted a picture of a tassel flower tree and a pavilion. She said she didn't know why, but whenever she thought of me, she felt a sense of warmth, always recalling the image of tassel flowers blooming profusely on the branches during springtime. I accepted each gift with a smile, treating them like priceless treasures. At that moment, wedding music drifted in from outside. It was my beloved Xia Xiaolangjian. After countless cycles of time, he had finally come to claim me. End of main text. The tutor of the crown prince. Side story. At 12 years old, I met the love of my life. She was a girl born into a military family. Even at such a young age, she possessed a bold and spirited demeanor. On the autumn hunting grounds, before the eyes of all, she snatched my life back from beneath the iron hooves of a wild stallion. Here, take this medicine. My father used it on the battlefield to heal his wounds. Apply it, and the pain will subside. Her voice rang clear and crisp. Dressed in a crimson hunting tunic, her eyes and brows carried the innate pride of a warrior's lineage. She looked truly beautiful in red. Like a phoenix reborn from the flames. I thought to myself then. She tossed the ointment to me. But how could I bear to use it? I hid it away for many years, until the paste inside the jar hardened, its fragrance long gone. Later I learned, her fondness for red stemmed from that youth who often wore crimson robes. She now donned red tunics for him, and someday would wear a red bridal gown for him. One year, I finally couldn't resist asking her, "Yao, do you want to be the crown prince's consort?" Not knowing what she truly desired, I offered her the highest position. The crown prince's consort would become the future empress. But she refused. "I'm marrying Xia Xian. I'll be a marquise." Love breeds resentment, resentment breeds anger. I was trapped. She drifted farther and farther from me. Until that year, when General Su and his wife passed away. My father, the emperor, took pity on her, bestowed upon her the title of princess, and brought her into the palace. Everyone in the palace adored her. She no longer treated me with icy indifference, instead calling me crown prince brother with every breath. I sensed something strange, yet ultimately succumbed to that tender trap. I sank deeper and deeper. Lost in sweet dreams, unwilling to awaken. Only later did I realize that wasn't her. I witnessed Xia Xian plotting every move for her, risking his life for her. I saw her weep for Xia Xian, ache for Xia Xian. And I stood beside them, feeling like a joke. Later still. They won. But Su Qingyao vanished. She disappeared along with the soul that had occupied her body. Then I discovered everyone else had forgotten her. Father and mother did not remember her. Even those surrogate consorts in my palace who had once been close to her, not even Shinrongrong remembered her. I recalled the one thing she had ever asked of me. She wished for me to grant freedom to the 9 maidens of the Eastern Palace. Most came from humble origins, even sheltered within the Eastern Palace, they would remain nameless and unrecognized for life. Indeed, they should be released. So I found a flimsy excuse, bestowed generous sums of silver upon them, and sent them far away. The Crown Prince is a busy man, he has no time to spend his days revolving around such women. And her marriage to Xia Yan was imminent, I suppose, if I too had forgotten her like everyone else. She might have been quite pleased. So when Xia Yan mentioned her, I deliberately countered, Shinrongrong? Who is that? Xia Yan looked at me with playful mockery, his crimson robes fluttering as he laughed sarcastically, Your Highness's acting still needs refinement. I hadn't expected this irritating man to see right through me. If I didn't still need his assistance, I'd have banished him to the ends of the earth. So I shifted my expression, arching my eyebrow again, Who is Shinrongrong? What concern is she to me? How about this? Xia Yan gave a reluctant nod, passable. Much better. I stared at the tear mole beneath Xia Yan's eye. Suddenly I remembered, back when she was by my side, the only thing she ever complimented about me was this mole on my face. So it was because I resembled this man. Tomorrow, I'll seek out a master mole removal specialist. Otherwise, every time I look in the mirror from now on, I'll likely be driven to fury. But in front of Xie Xian, I naturally had to maintain my composure. So I exhaled and said calmly, Then so be it. Tell her I've forgotten her too. And by the way, wishing you 100 years of bliss and a swift. Swift what the hell? Forget it. I still couldn't bring myself to say it. Then that's that. The Crown Prince is a busy man. The story ends here. Thank you all for your company. See you in the next chapter.